Hi, my name is Sarah. I am a mindset mastery coach, transformational hypnotherapist, and attachment style specialist. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the most important thing, the most important green flag that you should look for when dating a potential partner, and the red flag that you should avoid or at least demand some accountability with a potential partner. Okay, so that green flag is if you ask somebody, and you should ask them about their relationship and dating history, especially if they've been married before, but just in general. What was your relationship history like? Why did the bulk of your relationships end? And in particular, why did your marriage or marriages end? And if that individual is not able to tell you their role and their accountability in that relationship, Houston, we've got a problem. That is a red flag. It's not a yellow flag. It's definitely not a green flag. It's a red flag. Somebody that cannot tell you what their role was, but is very, very clear about what they think their ex's role was in the breakdown or demise of that relationship. They may say something like, here's a red flag. And again, this can indicate you're dealing with an avoidant, fearful, or dismissive. Well, I mean, we were incompatible, but it's vague. Like, you're like, well, give me examples, right? Vague. They don't know how to answer that. Or, well, there was a mental health issue with that ex. Okay, well, what was your role? And they're like, well, I know I had a role, but I don't really know what it was. Well, that's a problem, because what that tells you ultimately is that they haven't done any amount of self-reflection. Therefore, they have not processed that relationship or that breakup. Therefore, they have not actually healed from that. So if you choose to enter into a relationship with that individual, they're going to carry the wounds. Those wounds will resurface because they have not been processed. They're going to carry the shame, especially if they were the ones that left, or maybe they got cheated on, or they cheated on that partner. They're going to carry the shame, the vulnerability that they didn't process and deal with, the pain of the breakup. What if they were the ones that got left? The pain of the breakup, the pain of getting cheated on, the pain of the loss, and then all the way back to their childhood, because chances are this person never really learned how to healthily process any sort of loss or any sort of relationship ending. Okay. And there could be enmeshment with parents, there could be emotional neglect, there could have been any sort of abuse in their childhood, if for them to become an avoidant. But regardless, the question you would ask yourself, or should ask yourself, is why do I want to get involved with somebody who doesn't understand their role in their intimate romantic relationships? You might even go so far as to ask them, well, what about any friendships? Like, how have those friendships ended? And what was your role? And what was your accountability? What happened to fragment those relationships? What happened, if they don't speak to a parent or a family member, or maybe they don't speak to their entire family? I'm telling you, red flags. Now, there could be valid reasons for this, absolutely, but they need to be able to state those red flags and explain them to you and take accountability. With a dismissive avoidant in particular, it almost feels like they don't really have a history. Like, they do have a history, but they're not really aware of it. They're not really self-aware individuals. They don't really self-reflect or dive deep. They keep things superficial, as I stated before on other videos. And that's sort of where they like to live. They like to live in this sort of superficial, like the shallow waters of the ocean. They're not going into the deep part of the ocean. They're like, yeah, there's sharks in there, there's whales, there's all sorts of animals, and you're like, and it's kind of dark down there, and you're like, yeah, that's the shadow work, dude. That's the work that needs to be done to get to the other side. But they're like, I'm pretty comfortable here. There's some sand and seashells, and I'm like, I'm at shore and I know that I'm safe. And you're like, cool, but you're safe. But are you actually living? Are you just kind of surviving, or are you thriving? You can't really thrive if you haven't processed, if you're just sort of going through life superficially. I think that on the surface, it can look very good and very easy. And even like, oh, for those of us who are deep thinkers and feelers, you're like, oh God, it must be nice. But it's really not nice, because ultimately, a dismissive avoidant, it ends up alone. If they're not going to do their work, they'll end up alone. They'll end up with someone equally avoidant. And that's a shit show. But it's also a shit show for them to be with somebody who's anxiously attached or a fearful avoidant. Because with a fearful avoidant and dismissive avoidant, you're going to end up in the anxious avoidant trap anyway. So it's not fun for them to live their lives alone solo. I don't think they really want that. I think they deserve that because of their defective wound. I think they feel like they don't deserve love and happiness and joy. And they're like, I really don't know how to be compatible with anyone. I just know that I thrive when I'm alone. That's what they were taught in childhood, that they thrived alone. They were actually pretty much like latchkey kids. They were the ones who like, take care of yourself. Mom has to work. Dad's an alcoholic or whatever. They were pretty much neglected. They were not given validation. They were not given emotional security. So how can you expect them to give it to you? They don't even give it to themselves. They don't feel emotionally validated. They don't feel safe within their own skin. They're constantly looking for something outside. That's why they're constantly they're tinkering with things, or they have hobbies, or they're staying busy. They're constantly looking for something outside of themselves to validate them. Usually with dismissive avoidance, it can also be money, things like accolades, things like that. Like, look at all my degrees, look at all my awards, et cetera, et cetera. Now with the fearful avoidant is trying to prove themselves too, but kind of in a less overt way, like usually in a more covert way. They want to feel heard, seen, and understood. They're afraid of abandonment, and their core wound is like, I am just unworthy. I am so unworthy of love, because they would receive love and then it would get taken away. And ultimately, guys, if you're out there dating, or you're out there, maybe you're freshly divorced or going through a breakup and you're like, I'm ready to get out there, I really want you to look at the potential partners. I want you to ask the tough questions. I want you to ask the questions like, have you done your inner work? And don't let them skim over it. What does that look like for you? Are you still doing it? Have you been able to repair relationships with your parents? Have you forgiven your parents? If not, are you in the process of doing that? They don't have to be healed. Nobody's actually fully healed. They need to be in the process of helping themselves. They need to be in the process of learning to love themselves, learning to forgive themselves and accept themselves, and knowing that they're capable of processing what has transpired in their life, processing the tough stuff. Another red flag, if somebody's like, I don't believe in therapy, red fucking flag, okay? Or they think they know more than the therapist, red flag. A dismissive avoidant will often say that, like, I can't find someone like that. No, I know more than the therapist. And you're like, nah, I doubt that. And even if they did, you want someone who's open and willing to try to work on themselves, to work on their relationship, to be a part of a partnership. The dismissive avoidant, the way that I see this and the way that I experienced it in my marriage, was they sort of want like a business transaction. In fact, I shit you not, this was like a month into being married. My husband says, well, there's a book that I'd like you to read. You should read it. It's really good. I tell everyone about it. It's called Transactional Analysis, and it's all about how relationships are all transactional. And I was like, what the? Because here I am now healing fearful avoidant, and I'm like, ooh, I'm a deep feeler. I'm a deep thinker. I'm an empath. I'm a sensitive person. INFJ. I'm like, I feel things. I like feeling things, and I'm like transactional. And I was kind of like, yeah, I don't think that's the book for me. And I kind of opened it a couple times. It wasn't the book for me because that's not what I resonate with. I resonate with feeling. He resonated with thinking. So a fearful avoidant is going to feel, an anxious person is going to feel, a secure person is going to feel. A dismissive avoidant is going to avoid feeling. They're going to think. They're going to think their way through life. You can't have a healthy relationship with somebody who thinks their way through life. It's going to be superficial. When things get tough, let's say you're both in your, 50s, 60s. One of you loses a parent. Is that dismissive avoidant partner going to be able to step up to the plate and be there for you emotionally? Or are they just going to kind of be in the distance like, you should go connect with the people who can give you what you need because I can't give you what you need? I'm telling you, the DA eventually will say, I can't give you what you need. We are incompatible. These are all the things that you will hear a DA say. And that may be true. There may be some incompatibility. And I think when they say, I can't give you what you need, part of that is truth. Part of that's a cop out. Part of that is them saying, because I feel like if they really wanted to, they would start diving into their work and into themselves. And I'm not saying like, if they really, there's this whole thing going around, if they really wanted to, they would. Well, some people can't because they're not even aware that they're dismissive avoidant or fearful avoidant or anxiously attached. So they can't. They want to, but they can't. So that's not always the case, but sometimes it is the case. Like if they're aware and they know that they have issues and they know that they're the common denominator in all of their relationships and they've had a few failed marriages or relationships, then yeah, if they really wanted to, they would pursue healing and therapy. But oftentimes you'll see a dismissive avoidant go off on their own. If they are going to heal, they're like, I need to do this on my own. And you're like, but we're married, but we're committed. And to them, commitment is different. It's like they're committed to a certain degree, and then when things started to get tough, and what I mean by tough is you started to have demands, aka you started to have needs, and you voiced them. The dismissive avoidant is much more likely and apt to step back and step away, convince themselves that they need to be alone. I'm better off alone. I thrive alone. They really value their peace. They will even tell you that I value my peace. I think that's kind of a red flag. Like, dig deeper. If someone's like, you're dating someone in the initial stages and they're like, I really value my peace and independence, and dig a little deeper. That could be a DA that you have on your hands, and you want to try to catch this early before you get invested, because it can be so painful to be invested in a relationship with a DA or even an FA and then get discarded. I do not like the word discard, but I found, even talking to clients, that that really is a good word for how clients feel. They feel discarded. They feel like they just threw me out like yesterday's trash, and they're moving on, and it just looks and appears like they are fine. I'm telling you the truth, they are not fine. They're not fine. They may not be dissecting the relationship in the way that an FA or an anxiously attached person or even a secure person would, but just because it looks like they're quote unquote moving on, even starting to date someone, or they're just, oh my God, they're thriving in their career all of a sudden, they bought a new house, whatever, they're on vacation. It doesn't mean they're thriving. That just means they're avoiding dealing with your breakup, dealing with the pain and the hurt that they caused you and you caused them. And it's a distraction. We can only distract ourselves from ourselves for so long before eventually life will force us to do it. I don't know about you, but I would rather not be forced by life to do it. I would rather choose to do it than be forced by circumstances, because that's going to be a lot more painful. I can guarantee that. So all of this being said, the number one green flag is when someone is able to, and there are others, but I think for me, this is a number one. They're able to express and communicate to you very clearly and concisely the role they played in their previous relationships and why those relationships ended. They're able to take accountability, clear accountability, pardon me, and radical self-responsibility. Like, yeah, I know that I could have been more of this, or I know that I kind of did this, but and then they're like, this is what I've changed. This is how I've worked on that to become a better partner. You want someone who's always working towards becoming a better partner, becoming a better version of themselves. And if you have a true, especially a very severe DA on hand, no self-awareness, they lack self-awareness, they lack the ability to self-reflect. They are just constantly pushing and stuffing things down until they're one day going to overflow, right? Something will happen and they will overflow, and it'll probably be a great big loss. And something, I feel like that will be their breaking point. They're at rock bottom and suddenly everything's going to hit them. Every loss they've ever encountered will hit them. You can only avoid yourself for so long. I cannot state that enough. So if this video was helpful for you guys, I'm going to end it there. Please drop a like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment. I will try to answer as many questions as I can. If you'd like a personal session with me, I offer coaching sessions. I also offer a blend of hypnotherapy and coaching, or just straight hypnotherapy sessions. And I can work with anybody around the world. I use Zoom. And if you have any questions at all, please let me know. I'd so look forward to growing this channel organically with you guys, growing a community, and helping as many people as I can. And I really thoroughly enjoy being here. Thank you.